been on a mission to make medical knowledge more open, to bring more people together to solve big problems, and to make healthcare a better and more fair environment for everyone. Dr. Celi is an associate professor in medicine at the Harvard Medical School and a senior research scientist at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And his journey spans multiple continents and multiple disciplines, beginning with a medical degree at the University of the Philippines, followed by advanced training in internal medicine, infectious disease, critical care, public health. I should take my time listing all of these. Public health, medical informatics, and so forth. And this was done at world-renowned institutions, including Cleveland Clinic, Stanford, Mass Gen Hospital, Harvard, and MIT. But Dr. Celi, as mentioned, he's not just a physician, but he's also a pioneer in clinical innovation and data science as well. He's the principal investigator of MIMIC, one of the most impactful data sets in machine learning for healthcare. And with his work in this area, he's really democratized access to critical care data. And through this platform, he's actually empowered over 50,000 researchers worldwide, and I think 8,000 or so publications. And this is really critical to improving how we ask and answer clinical questions. He also serves as the director of MIT Critical Data, a global consortium committed to making data and learning central to healthcare. And through more than 50 health datathons in 25 countries, Dr. Celi has brought together clinicians, data scientists, and patients to co-create solutions that are inclusive, equitable, and globally relevant. His scholarship is also prolific, with over 32,000 citations and a body of work that spans machine learning, global health, and digital medicine. He is the editor-in-chief of PLOS Digital Health and a recipient of the NIH and HHS DataWorks Prize. Along with this, he's a passionate educator, leading multiple courses at MIT and Harvard and authoring widely accessible textbooks translated into multiple languages. With all this said, he's been an inspiration and a role model for multiple researchers and clinicians and individuals throughout the world, including myself. And with that being said, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Leo Celi.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah, I've known Chris since he was a kid. No, just kidding. When he was still a PhD student. So it's been a while. It's almost 10 years now, but it's great to be here. It's my first time in Ottawa. And I'd like to say that I don't want this to be a self-congratulatory hour. I'm a big critic of academia patting its back, although I do have some slides, but those slides are not to congratulate my team, but primarily to show really the benefit of community. So we think that that's our biggest contribution to the field, is sort of promoting this idea of data communities. I am on a mission. The mission here is to rile you up. The mission here is to truly get you passionate, because we are under attack on several fronts. And if you haven't had your coffee, I promise you that this will be 2 jolts of espresso by the end. So it seems like an impossible task. I'm not trying to, what do you call this, advertise Mission Impossible. But if you do decide to take this mission, it will require a lot of creativity. But we have been traveling really since 2016. We try to build these data communities in different parts of the world. We're heading to the Amazons next week, actually, to have one of these events where we bring together people with different backgrounds. I'll talk more about that later on. But I think that there is definitely light at the end of the tunnel. One of my upcoming talks is called The Dark Side of Health AI and the Light at the End of the Tunnel, just so make sure that it's not too negative. So initially the title was, is AI worth it? But I thought that that's asking the wrong question, because I think the right question now is, how do we make AI worth its cost? Because we can't say no if we say that AI is not worth it. The ship is not going to come back. It's sailed. We need to catch up with it. So we need to do our best to make sure that we truly leverage this powerful technology. So what is the cost of AI? And these are the 5 umbrellas of where we see the potential risks and harm that AI would bring to society. The first is the opportunity costs, the environmental costs, the effect on global politics from the extractivist nature of AI, workforce displacement, and the threat to human faculty and agency. When it comes to opportunity cost, the investment in AI is just staggering. It's increasing by at least 50% every year, so that by year 2033, the estimate from the UN Trade and Development is probably around $5 trillion. And the issue here is that at the beginning, it's a zero-sum game. This money is going to come from somewhere. And this money is being diverted away from tackling poverty, tackling education, tackling all the driving forces that deliver these suboptimal outcomes for patients across the world. Environmental cost. The training of one large language model alone produces carbon dioxide equivalent to 125 round trips between Beijing and New York City. That's one large language model. One ChatGPT query uses as much electricity as could light one light bulb for 20 minutes. So before you click that prompt to Claude, just think about that. Generating one image takes as much energy as fully charging your smartphone. So again, we are truly accelerating the melting of all the icebergs. The effect on global politics from the extractivist nature of AI. As we know, the data centers are cropping up everywhere, and they require material backbone of computing, and typically these minerals are extracted from the global south. AI industry is also exploiting cheap and precarious labor. We heard about OpenAI paying Kenyans between $1.30 and $2 per hour for reinforcement learning from human feedback. Workforce displacement. Goldman Sachs said that AI could replace as much as 300 million jobs in the next few years, or about 1/4 of the workforce in the US and Europe. This is happening now. If you're not concerned about your job, you should be. Take out that head from the sand, because everyone is going to have to change what they think they're going to be doing in the next few years. And the challenge is that we don't even know what that's going to be. People are complaining, oh, medicine is already taking 8 years. I think that's actually going to change. Medicine might take 2 or 3 years because you don't have to memorize anything anymore. But what that's going to look like, we have no clue. And then, unfortunately, with the workforce displacement, it's going to affect more women than men. About 20% more women would be at risk of losing their job. Threat to human faculty and agency. We're probably a year or two away when you could dump a whole data set into Claude and ask it to write a full scientific paper. We are going to be swimming in AI-generated papers. And I'm not telling you to stop using AI. I think it's backward to say that you cannot use AI, because AI has truly opened our world. So what you don't want is for AI to do 99% of research. So we need to rethink, what would a scientific paper look like? It's not going to be introduction, methods, results, discussion, because that could easily be generated by AI. Maybe we need a digital proof that the humans were doing proper decision-making at every step of the way. Maybe we need proof about the discussion about how the question was identified. Definitely, we need the GitHub repo and the notebooks, but maybe we need snippets of Zoom calls between the investigators to discuss why this question is needed to be answered. And we need to look at the iteration in the study design. So this requires a huge reimagination. I'm gonna say it now. If we fail, it's because we failed to reimagine what the world might look like that will be closer to our vision of what that world should be. Because AI is going to be producing most of research. AI is going to be doing the peer review. And I'm also telling you, use AI to help you peer review. I do that all the time and I learn so much. I usually gather together a team. We all use AI. We all fact check to what AI is telling us. And then we record our discussion of the paper. And then it generates the review already. It has major comments, minor comments, and everyone learns so fast. And this is the only way to learn in this field because, as you know, this is moving so fast. There will be no class out there that can keep up with all the advances that we're seeing with AI. By the time you have a curriculum, it's already outdated. So we teach a class on machine learning for healthcare, and every year it's starting from scratch. There's very little that we keep from the previous year, and we record it anyway. So we just tell the students, well, go back to the following, watch them at 2x speed, look at the AI generated summary, and these are the new topics now that you need to really be able to understand. So education systems have to evolve. You can't be giving homework that AI can answer. And please don't tell the students to not use AI, because to me, that's being myopic. We need to teach our students how to be able to use AI so that they could learn more than they could learn in the classrooms now. And once again, this is going to require major reimagination. And this is what we do now when we travel around the world, is to challenge the students. What would teaching physics in high school look like with AI? What would teaching history in college look like with AI? And the students are actually very excited. They're actually very bored with the homework that we give them, where there is a correct answer and we just judge them whether how close they got to the correct answer. Because in life, there are really no correct answers. There's all these uncertainties. So somehow we need to change the way we evaluate students too. So these are all challenges because AI is giving us such a strong temptation to be lazy, to cheat. And somehow I think our ability to critically think is under threat because it's very easy just to be able to tick all the boxes. AI is providing us a shortcut to get publications and citations. So as long as that publish or perish culture is out there, we're doomed. We need to start dismantling that. And that's going to be tough. We're writing a narrative on publish or perish. And the first paper that described it was published in 1928. And every decade, there's this collection of papers saying that this publish or perish culture has to go. But you could tell that academia is so powerful because they've managed to hold on to it because it enables them to preserve their power. This is how they differentiate themselves from the rest of the world. So our biggest enemy, I keep saying, is hubris. If you watch the movie Conclave, Cardinal Lawrence said that certainty is the enemy of unity. Certainty is the enemy of science. Hubris is the enemy of science. It is not the perfect that's the enemy of the good. It's actually hubris. So going back to the question, how do we make AI worth its cost? And the answer is use AI to fix the root of the problem. And what do we think is the root of the problem? The Friday before last, I actually gave this talk as keynote at the NIH AI Symposium, AI bias, and it's a play on words, as you could say, as you could tell, it's AI bias. Now we call it AI by us for all of us. And we think that the root of the problem is our knowledge system. So what we would like to do is use AI to transform knowledge generation and learning. And I actually hate the word research. So maybe next year you drop the word research day, because to me, it should be learning, right? And this should be part of our lives. We either learn or we perish. And I hate it because research makes students think that it is optional. It is not optional. We need to learn every day. And again, every day should be a learning day. And of course, we should celebrate what we learn, and that's why we have days like this. So the question is, what's wrong with knowledge generation pre-AI? And the follow-up questions are, can we fix it with AI and how? And more importantly, who can fix it? Sometimes we are so obsessed with the what, and I say that the right questions is actually the who and not the what. Because as soon as you're answering the who, the what just conjures itself before your eyes. And to be able to describe the problem with knowledge generation pre-AI, I typically would refer to what we refer to as epistemic injustice, how the knowledge system has harmed groups of people in the past. And my favorite example is how we have harmed women because our description of heart attacks in medical textbooks is based on description of white men having heart attacks in rich countries. And then suddenly anything that falls outside that are considered atypical symptoms, when in fact, it's atypical for white men in rich countries, but it could be typical for other people in the rest of the world. So we know now that if you're a woman and you have a heart attack, your risk of having poorer outcomes is higher than for a man. And I think one of the reasons why is because our understanding of heart attacks, the trials that have been done in acute myocardial infarction are predominantly enrolling male participants. During the pandemic, we published this paper called The Myth of Generalizability in Clinical Research and Machine Learning in Healthcare. And I wanted to really emphasize that the findings that you report in your scientific papers have an expiration date. Their accuracy is truly limited by time and space. And in a real world, what you want to do is to perform a trial on every intervention, on every combination of intervention, over and over again on every subpopulation. But of course, that's not going to happen. So to the trialists out there, I say that definitely trials will not be able to provide us. I'm not saying that it's not going to provide any answers, but definitely it's not going to be enough. And we need to be creative in terms of how do we identify tests and treatments that will benefit our patients. So we have been thinking about how should the creation and validation of knowledge be affected by AI, but I thought that we need to rephrase that because what is AI providing us is an immense opportunity to change the way we think, the way we learn, and the way we work together. And I'm gonna go to the sort of the money shot here. What do we need to teach with AI in the air that we're breathing? The first is really critical thinking, which overlaps somewhat with systems thinking, which is sometimes called health system science. And no matter how much you'd like to think that we are teaching our students critical thinking, we are not, because we have decoupled learning from curiosity and the joy from learning. Our metrics of learning are no longer representing true learning. And when I talk about traditional metrics of learning, they are grades, they are standardized tests, they are your ability to climb the ladders of academia. And somehow you don't see anyone anymore enjoying learning. I've never heard of a PhD student saying, I am so in love with what I'm doing with my PhD. To them, it's all about, will I get a NeurIPS paper this year? Will I get a publication in Nature Medicine? And we have done a disservice to humanity by coupling learning with these external rewards. I will keep repeating the phrase epistemic humility, and it means that it's an acknowledgement that what you know right now is truly a product of your experiences, your interface with knowledge, with information, with different cultures. And for that reason, no one will have a true understanding of the world because you cannot experience everything in the world. So I say now that I would like to start the day similar to your land acknowledgement with an acknowledgement that the easiest person to fool is yourself. I forgot who said that. Anyway, it will come back to me. But that is truly just saying that it is very easy to fool yourself, that most and that the biggest enemy for us in being able to advance science is groupthink. So groupthink is very similar to certainty. And to be able to avoid that, it's very important for you to surround yourself with people who don't think like you. And I love the saying that when everyone is thinking alike, no one is truly thinking. Because if there was one person there who had been thinking, she or he would point out, hey, wait a minute, all our blind spots are overlapping here. We're not seeing the problem in its entirety. And yes, I've been critical of a lab where all the students are coming from the same field and the PI is also an expert in that field. I don't think that you'll be able to solve any problem. If that's the case, you should at least be meeting with other labs from other schools regularly. So I spend about half my day talking to linguists, anthropologists, space engineers, oil rig architects, because they're giving us ideas of where to take our science. This reflection, in order to truly embrace epistemic humility, needs to happen in terms of truly understanding what is motivating you in doing science. So is it that NeurEPS paper or iClear or ICML? Is it a publication in New England Journal of Medicine? Is it being promoted to associate professor of computer science? I'm not saying that that is wrong. Everyone is guilty. I am guilty of those motivations, but we need to acknowledge that upfront because we know that they're going to be affecting the way we make decisions. So this reflection will also only be effective if you're doing it amongst people who don't think like you. If you're reflecting within your own echo chambers, probably no one is going to push back against your ideas. So we're going to dive into health AI. And one of the biggest problems that we see now is that the electronic health records have become the de facto building blocks of health AI. And that is a big mistake because the electronic health records do not contain the information that we need to be able to explain the patterns that we will be detecting with AI. And no matter what you say about you have a causal framework, it's not going to work because the data that we're using just is not complete enough. And also there's so much bias in what we think are the causal pathways, the causal mechanisms behind our understanding of relationships. And please don't say that this is only providing causation, not correlation, because the way we practice medicine, 99% is based on causation. We've never done experiments in most of the things that we do. If you're saying that this is only proving causation, correlation, then don't publish because your intent by showing the correlation is to infer causation, right? In the end, there's really no causal evidence. And even if you have causal evidence, that's going to change over time. There's no such thing as static causal frameworks. So knowledge or understanding of truth is purely based on experiences and observations. So to a certain degree, there is no such thing as ground truth. How we see, perceive things objectifies, or more aptly, subjectifies those things. And it brings to mind Schrodinger's cat, where the question is the cat dead or alive inside this box, where there is a cyanide poison that can be activated depending on the quantum state of the atom. And at any one point, it could be activating the cyanide or not. So at any one point, it's very difficult to say whether the cat is dead or alive. I think you should assume that the cat is alive, of course, and just put food in there. And this slide has undergone so many revisions to make sure that it's not gonna land in the crosshairs of people. But I think everyone here would agree that we need plurality of perspectives and lived experiences to create good science. And I would say that statement again, groupthink is the enemy of knowledge. And we can only have that if you truly bring together people who could see the problem from different lenses. We're using health data to create artificial intelligence for healthcare. And we're now saying that this artificial intelligence can deliver expertise in remote villages of Africa or Asia or South and Central America. But unfortunately, the ground truths about the health and disease of those people are not captured in the data that we're using to build artificial intelligence. And the best analogy for this is the drunk man who is looking for his lost wallet in a large park under a lamppost. And a cop came up to him and asked him, "Is this where you lost your wallet, sir?" And he said, "No, officer, but this is where the light is. Why would I look for my wallet in the dark?" It's very similar to AI. We're building AI on digitized data, and it's not representing the health and diseases of 4.5 billion people who don't have any access to healthcare. Mere representation of minority populations in the data is the first step, but it's the first of numerous steps. This data that we're using right now to build AI is inherently flawed for so many reasons. And these are two papers that highlight what the problems are with data coming from the electronic health records. The review to the left-hand side is just a list of medical devices that are used routinely in the ICU that are biased. We all know about the pulse oximeter and how they don't perform well for patients of color. But that's the tip of the iceberg. Every instrument, every medical device, every medical equipment that is in use is to a certain degree biased because they were prototyped and optimized typically on a college-age white male demography. And yet we use them in our patients in the ICU. We know, for example, that the amplitude of your ECG is markedly reduced for very large-breasted patients. How many conduction defect did we miss because we did not see that in the small amplitude ECG? We know that EEG leads don't stick to people with wiry hair. How many seizures did we misdiagnose because of the artifacts that are produced by leads that are not sticking well to the scalp? And then the paper to the right is showing us that we don't collect data similarly across patients. We think that, oh, the only thing that matters that affect the frequency of measurement is the disease and the severity. Wrong. In this paper, we show that people who don't speak English well at the hospital that I work in, their blood sugars are less likely to be measured at night because at night, if we wake them up, we have to explain, why am I waking you up at 2 o'clock and pricking your finger? So the chances that we will just forego checking those blood tests is higher. And everywhere we look, we see differences in how often do you check pain scores. It's different across patients. Even routine care that we think is being done to all patients, again, they're different. And most of the time, the AI modelers are not even aware of the problem. So we just publish a paper, we call it Race Against the Machine Learning Courses. Because when we survey the machine learning courses, none of them is teaching the student, how did the data came about? Who collected the data? What devices were used? Who made it to the data set? Who did not make it to the data set? And one of the biggest enemies for machine learning and also for clinical research is sampling selection bias. Because how the patients ended up in your cohort could have profound effect on the patterns and the associations that you're going to discover in your data set. And this is a very good example of sampling selection bias. This is a paper that identifies what are the predictors of death if you get hospitalized with COVID. As you can see from the title, it came from the Veterans Affairs hospitals. which means that they may not be representative of the US population, and more so, they may not be representative of the global population. This is the money shot of that paper. If you look at the first third and focus on the column to the left and the next column, you would see that with increasing age, there's increasing risk of death among patients. Again, no surprise, those who are older than 85 are 6.85 times more likely to die compared to those who are less than 65. And then you look at the middle third, and it's telling you that patients who never smoked are more likely to die than patients who are current smokers or patients who previously smoked. If you were at the front lines of care during the pandemic, you knew that if they have chronic lung disease, the damage from COVID is going to be higher. And then if you look at the last third, it's also telling you that patients who are not obese are more likely to die from COVID. And once again, if you were at the front lines of care during the pandemic, you will notice that it's the overweight patients who end up in the ICU and who end up dying. So what happened here? This is not a fluke. This is not because they did a lousy job of analysis. This is a perfect example of sampling selection bias, because it turns out that if you're a veteran and you develop COVID and you're not obese and you don't smoke, chances are you won't get admitted to a hospital. You will not make it to the data set. So if you want to do an algorithm to predict death, what you need is everyone who developed COVID, whether or not they got admitted. And then again, what do the students do now? They just look for an open source database. They look for something to predict, and then they evaluate the models in terms of what sticks in terms of accuracy. That is perfect recipe for encrypting, preserving, scaling, and augmenting all the structural inequalities that we're seeing. So the next few slides pertain to papers that I found most disturbing that have been published in the domain of health AI. And I have two statements that I would like you to remember. The first is, we need to stop building AI models now. Instead, we have to design human AI systems. And these are two papers. The first one is actually not pertaining to a machine learning algorithm. It's a clinical algorithm that was heuristically put together by experts. And it's an algorithm to predict who is going to develop acute kidney injury among hospitalized patients, where typically this is missed because you just have so many patients. It's a very simple algorithm. It looks at the creatinine, it looks at the urine output, it looks at, I think, some ICD codes, and then it gives you an alert if the patient is at high risk of developing acute kidney injury, because we miss this all the time. And it sounds like it's a very safe intervention to deploy, because you're not really introducing an intervention, and the clinicians are still going to do standard of care. They're not going to change what they do for the patient. All they're getting is an alert that the patient is going to do to develop acute kidney injury. And they made sure that before they deployed it, that it has a good sensitivity, specificity, positive predictive value, precision, and recall. And they applied for an ethics approval to deploy it in 6 hospitals, 2 large academic centers, 2 small community hospitals. And the ethics committee said, oh, this is low risk, go ahead. And what they wanted to see if whether there is benefit of this alert with regard to a composite outcome of death, transfer to the ICU, or initiation of dialysis. And they aggregated the data, and they also looked at data within each of those hospital types. And spoiler alert, not surprising, they did not see any benefit. But what was alarming is that in the 2 small community hospitals, the number of patients who died doubled when the alert was given to doctors who were taking care of those patients. And the authors couldn't explain why that was the case. But the message here is that the effect of algorithms is going to be heterogeneous. It's going to differ from hospital system to hospital system. The other paper under this heading of we should stop building models. We need to start designing human AI systems, was published a year ago. What they did was to prospectively evaluate an AI that helps radiologists read a chest X-ray. And their hypothesis was that the AI would perhaps help the most novice of all the radiologists, the ones who are still in training or just finished training, and probably would not have that much effect on the seasoned radiologist. And the most startling finding is when the most seasoned radiologists started making more mistakes when given an AI co-pilot. And when they interviewed this radiologist, they said that, well, there were occasional times when AI disagreed with me, and upon second look at the X-ray, AI was right. And then they started losing their confidence. They started freaking out because they made a mistake. And they started making mistakes that they weren't doing prior to AI. And once again, you need to be able to preempt what are the changes in the behavior that will likely be observed among the users of AI. And none of the AI labs are doing this much human factors research. And it's truly concerning. The second statement is that humans in the loop may not save us. People are always say that, oh, as soon as you put humans there, you'll be all good to go. Sometimes humans in the loop is humans in the news. This is a paper that compared AI alone versus humans alone versus humans plus AI. And in some of the tasks, AI alone did better than humans plus AI. Again, debunking the myth that the addition of humans would be enough to be able to make sure that we can put AI on the rails. Relying solely on clinical vigilance as a safeguard against AI errors is insufficient and potentially hazardous. There is a circular fallacy logic to think that the same humans who have implicit bias would be able to detect the bias in AI. And one of the experiments that I typically narrate at this part is a test conducted by the TSA in 2015, where they put an incognito investigators that were trying to smuggle weapons. And they did this experiment in a dozen of the busiest airports, and 67%, 67 out of the 70 airports failed to detect. There was one with a pistol at the back, and it alarmed, and he was tapped, and they did not feel the gun at the back. So they're very good at detecting water bottles. But the only testing that they do for hard to spot instances is very limited. And the same thing, how do we expect humans to actually detect if algorithm is being biased? But that is not stopping us from deploying AI. This was a study conducted in early 2023. And at that time, among the hospitals surveyed, already said 65% are using AI. Again, most doctors, nurses, they think that they're not using AI. You're wrong. It's there all over in the hospitals already. A lot of these are operational AI. Payers are using them to predict the trajectory. They're not considered health products because they're operational AI. They don't need any ethics approval because they are not clinical decision-making tools, but they will kill patients, especially if you didn't validate them and interrogate them for errors before deployment. And the most concerning parts of this study is the finding that the smallest hospitals are just buying AI off the shelf. And of course, that's not surprising at all because they don't have the resources. They're cash trapped already. You don't expect them to have expertise in evaluating AI. And even the largest hospitals. So you would think that some hospitals are far ahead in terms of AI. It's all fluff. They're struggling because you cannot afford to hire this many data scientists. they're all working for OpenAI or Microsoft for 300K. Health systems don't have the budget to be able to afford these data scientists who will help them locally validate the tools. We need to be smarter. Our approach is to connect health systems with universities. We want the students to take this as their homework, to create data pipelines, to create AI pipelines. They get excited when they know that we don't know the correct answers to your homework, but maybe we could evaluate whether your work is robust enough. But again, this will require a different mindset. We wouldn't know how to grade this. And most teachers would just balk at this suggestion, like, F that, I'm not gonna do that because I need to redo all the curriculum and I don't have the expertise to be able to evaluate the students. That is the wrong answer. We need to figure out a way of being able to harness this free labor that we could get from students. It's not really free labor because we're actually educating them in the process. The way I put it now is that as a doctor, I've been given all these new instruments in the cockpit. I'm already flying the plane and I'm being told, you need to figure out what this instrument is doing and know how to use it and figure out whether it's working properly. And all of this while I'm flying the plane. And in the United States, they say that the doctors are accountable, the providers are accountable if AI was correct and we did not follow it and the patient died or vice versa. And yet no one is teaching students, trainees, AI. It's like an elective course. It's something that they do on ground rounds once a year. It's not gonna work. I was giving a workshop in one of the most reputable medical schools in my area. I'm not gonna tell you which one. And a fourth-year medical student said, you know, this is the very first official lecture or workshop that we attended on AI. And yet they tell us, oh, these are all the AI tools that you could use to help you learn. But no one has given them any background on AI. And in most medical schools, again, they just sprinkle it with AI, and that's not good enough. It needs to be completely revamped from a clean slate of how we teach, because now there is no purpose anymore, because you could engage with Claude and truly understand how does the kidney work. So there's a huge task ahead of us, and it's daunting. It's even paralyzing. But I travel every week, actually, and I get so excited because I meet young people, and they have all these crazy ideas. They don't have the cynicism of old farts like me. They really think that they could take this on, and I believe them. The ideas that they come up with, we have about 150 plus projects going on right now because we have this event at different parts of the world, and they come up with new projects. And it's very exciting. But this is the classroom of the future. These innovations are happening, but they're all happening at the margins. We need to bring it to the center. I think that it has to be top down and from the margins towards the center. I hate bottom up because I don't think that this is really bottom education. These are truly innovative education that's happening. So I wanted to remind people that aviation industry and road safety became what it is now, not because we started building safer airplanes or we started putting seatbelts. It's because we turned this into an entire system, an FAA, where there is expertise in being able to navigate the airspace. There is local expertise for weather detection. So there are so many parts of why we have reduced markedly deaths from vehicular road crashes and from plane crashes. And what we need is safety-centered human AI system design thinking, a community-focused post-deployment continuous monitoring with system redesign as needed, and once again, a revamping of legacy systems for education, for innovation, and for regulation. Again, very daunting, very paralyzing, and it's almost like you're tired already when you say, what do you mean I have to revamp our system for education, innovation, regulation? I think we're gonna do it. I really think that AI is a Trojan horse we've been waiting for to tell the top organizations that we have been doing this wrong all along. Amidst this chaos is an opportunity to reflect, what have we been doing wrong? How come we're seeing all these health disparities? And I think we should be excited by that opportunity. So how do you teach a topic where it is moving so fast? And this is where our group has been really focusing on, is building agency and capacity by bridging communities to get excited around data. I said earlier that I hate self-congratulatory talks, but just um, bear with me for the next few slides. And to me, the purpose of this is really to just show you that it's more than just opening the data sets. You need to invest on social capital. You need to invest in changing the culture in the way we think, the way we learn, and the way we work together. We're moving on from saying we need open science to we need community science. It turns out that open science unfolds in a non-neutral space where there are power structures, and not everyone benefits from open science. If you don't speak English, you're probably not benefiting from open science. And this is why in our events, we also make sure that we don't have it in English. We insist that the students speak their own language, they present in their own language, so that we don't exclude people who are not very fluent in English. And we mentioned MIMIC, which is our gift to the world. It's medical information marked for intensive care. It's been available for 15 years. It has produced close to 10,000 papers. So when your data privacy lawyers tell you that it is not safe to share publicly the identified data, tell them that there are so many examples. And tell them that the threat is cybersecurity, not re-identifying the identified data. We did a study and we compared how many patients have been harmed by cyber hacks versus re-identify them from a data. And we worked with this media group that scoured through news report of re-identified persons in the identified data. And we actually did not find any in 20 years. And then of course, during that time alone, maybe billions of records were breached. So again, people are conflating risk of re-identification with cyber attacks. Those are two very different things. So as I mentioned, this is our contribution. The paper describing MIMIC3 has been cited, I think, close to 9,000 times now, and this is in less than 10 years. And when we looked at the number of publications and the number of citations, and then we standardized them according to the amount of funding that we've gotten, we beat the UK Biobank. We beat Open Safely. And the UK Biobank has gotten $500 million of funding. MIMIC has gotten $5 million of funding over the last 10 years. And yet we have managed to produce more papers. Again, this is not proof that we have true value. I don't want to say that the way to evaluate the value of research is through publications and citations. To me, I'm hoping that our value is changing the way we think, the way we learn, the way we work together. And this is just the graph after adjusting it really for the amount of investment that these data sets have received. So we lead a consortium called MIT Critical Data, and we hold what we call Health DataCon. So now they're no longer Datathon because we've moved away from just getting people to build models. We realized that we were the culprits because we try to make them build models within 2 days, and they get very excited when the accuracy is high. Like, this is perfect recipe. Like, now we do 2 days of just understanding the data, understanding the missingness. Nothing is missing at random. And those statistical methods to impute, they're all wrong because they don't understand the social determinants of health, the social determinants of care. Some of the workshops that we have started conducting is what we call LTARC, Real World Evaluation of Large Language Models. Again, people confuse benchmarks with evaluation. Those are two very different things. Benchmarks don't mean anything, especially in healthcare. What you need to do is to perform real-world evaluation by actual users. So what does that mean? We will be in Toronto at University of Toronto in December, and we will be conducting a real-world evaluation of language models for counseling patients with depression. We are inviting people with depression. We're inviting social workers. We're inviting psych nurses, psychologists, psychiatrists. And they come up with their evaluation framework. We do not prescribe the evaluation framework. We ask them, what should be important to you? So it's not just accuracy. They come up with a grading system, and they do the grading of Claude versus ChatGPT versus Grok, and they get a sense now of which ones are more psychopathic than the others. And then we will be going to UBC in November. And I'd love to come back here because what we need is continuous real-world evaluation. They have to be, L stands for local, or it has to be hyper-local. T is task-specific. You cannot have, oh, it passed the Canadian medical licensing exam. That doesn't mean anything. You need to see how well does this help clinicians in understanding the treatments of sepsis. So you have 2 hours of them just interrogating the language model of how accurate is it in giving you figures or giving you treatment recommendation. It should be agile. The language models should be continuously reevaluated. So even if it passed the marks this year, it doesn't mean that it will still be good enough next year. They have to be reflective and reflexive. It means that you need to be ready to recalibrate it if you're seeing some problems in patient outcomes as soon as they started using the language models. And most importantly, the C stands for community operated and continuous. We've also been doing what we call HASTE policy camps. HASTE stands for Health AI Systems Thinking for Community. And what we do here is also form teams that are multidisciplinary and cross-generational. We love it when we have high school students and professors of engineering in one table. And then we give them some of the papers that I presented earlier. And then we ask them, can you think of the worst possible scenario that could happen as an unintended consequence, or if this algorithm gets into the hands of the wrong people? So one of the papers, we had the Brown University Datathon this past 2 days. One of the papers that we give is a paper called Face Age that was published last week on Lancet Digital Health, where it's estimating your biological age from your face photo. And whether you look older or younger than your age determines your chances of surviving chemotherapy. Think about that. So the decision to give you chemotherapy depends on whether you look old for your age or young for your age. Where could that go wrong? And what if that algorithm gets into the hands of payers who are giving prior authorization? We need to think about these questions. And we're actually publishing a commentary, and some of those authors are our friends. And we asked them, like, what were you thinking? So in Africa, we gave this case, and you might have heard of this paper too, and it's inferring the sexual identity from the headshots. And these are Stanford investigators who used photos from Tinder and Grindr. So they were labeled as homosexual or heterosexual, and they created an algorithm. And of course, the algorithm was like 90% accurate. And we gave that to a team of students in Uganda, and they said, what the F were they thinking? Because in Uganda, homosexuality is a crime. And if the government gets hold of this algorithm, you could go to prison. So this is the type of critical thinking that we want our machine learning students to truly develop. This is, again, some tooting our horn. We have been looking at the effect of these events to our participants. What we did was we looked at the participants in a Society of Critical Care Medicine Datathon in 2020 and compared them to those who were already presenting abstracts. but who did not attend the datathon. And then we went 3 and 4 years before and 3 to 4 years after. And 3 to 4 years before, the ones who were already presenting had more publications and more citations, which is not surprising. But you know what? 3 to 4 years after, the other group overtook that group. And what's more interesting is that there is more diversity in the research networks of those who attended the datathon across countries, across disciplines, across sects. And to us, there is enough empirical evidence that if you're working within diverse teams, then you're more likely to contribute more to knowledge generation. And then I'm going to spend the last maybe 10 minutes on a very quick tour of some of the upcoming projects from us. So now showing and coming soon. This is a paper that we published a few years ago now where we showed that computers can tell the race ethnicity based on the medical image without any clinical data. And we don't know what it is actually learning. And for our follow-up project, we ask ourselves, can we also train computers to tell us if you're rich or poor based on a normal chest X-ray? So no radiologic findings, and of course it could. The numbers here are not that good, but this is based on the images alone. As soon as you combine this with other clinical data, I'm pretty sure that computers are going to determine right away if you're rich or poor. And if they could learn this, so why is it important? Why is this important? Like someone asked me, why are you building these algorithms? Why don't you just ask the patient if she is black or white? Like, no, that's not the point of this experiment. The point is that if they could tell if you're rich or poor, if you're gay or bi or straight, if you are left-leaning or right-leaning, they're going to use that as a feature to make decisions of whether you should be admitted to the ICU because you're training your AI on human data. As humans, we have those biases. Like I remember having a patient and she had the words white power tattooed on her chest and everyone did not like her. And I'm pretty sure she got suboptimal care. So if we're making these biased decisions and we train AI using these algorithms and we say, oh, AI does not see the patient, but it does. It can see these features. Like AI could tell the sex of the patient based on the arteries and the veins at the back of the eye, the fundus photo. And you ask the ophthalmologist, that's impossible, but they could. So again, we have to be very careful. And we couldn't figure out what is it that the computers are learning. What we learned though is that whether you're rich or poor is found predominantly in the upper third of your chest. So it's seeing something on the shoulders, on the joints, it's seeing something on the neck. That's where it's most of the features are being used to determine whether you're rich or poor as proxied by the insurance type. We're working a lot on vector embeddings, but I think this is going to be very interesting to the folks here. And the reason, so vector embeddings are just the numeric array of numbers that represent the original image. And the reason why we're investing in this is that we have a funded project in Africa where we created a repository of medical images, cervical photos, fundus photos, skin lesions. And it's just sitting in a server because not only are they very computationally expensive to process and to build models on, but there's also power interruptions every hour and internet connectivity issues. So they're useless. So someone suggested maybe we can use the last layer before you send it to the ML classifier and use that instead for downstream tasks. So that's what we have been doing. And we've created vector embeddings of echocardiograms. We've created vector embeddings of ECGs. And as regards the echocardiograms, if you use that and not the echocardiograms itself, you could develop models that would predict some of the measurements in the echo, some of the diagnosis as well. And then this is an interesting project because we use vector embeddings of ECGs and chest X-rays to tell you whether the patient has pulmonary embolus. So perhaps especially in places where you don't have CTA, maybe from the X-ray alone or the ECG alone, you could tell the likelihood. And it's very good in determining whether it's a hemodynamically significant pulmonary embolus. The numbers go up higher. But you have to be careful. What is it that they're encoding? Are shortcut features encoded in vector embeddings? And of course, the answer is yes. You could tell from the vector embeddings which of the echocardiograms belong to a man or a woman, belong to a white patient or a black patient. And the trick is, can we disentangle the features that are related to sex from the features that are related to the disease? There's going to be a lot of overlap. And what we want is that you increase the contribution of the features that are only encoding the disease. And you include some of the features because a lot of them will be encoding for both the disease and some demographic factors. And another very exciting project is a transformer model of the unevenly sampled numeric data in the electronic health records. So transformer models are very good with text and for images too, but for numeric data, you now have to encode so many features. So you need to encode the value itself, the type of test or observation, the timestamp. But here, we're trying to understand what is the relationship of a certain blood pressure to a sodium. And we have a preliminary, we call it Lab May, and we created a transformer model using mass autoencoder to be able to predict a lab test based on the other lab tests that came before it. So it's truly understanding relationships of numeric data. And we could use this as the baseline model so that we don't use up all the GPUs in terms of developing multimodal models. And I think this is the last project that I'm going to discuss. It's probably the most scary. What we show here is that language models are recalibrating their answers based on your IP address and your cookie history. And of course, that's not surprising. Sycophancy bias. The goal of this language model creators is to get you addicted. So it's not going to try to antagonize you. It's going to goad you. It's going to say that, oh my God, you're so good. And with this is the risk of reinforcing your biases. And to end this presentation, I said earlier that you need to stop building models. You need to truly design human AI systems. And what we have been doing is bringing together people with very different backgrounds. I mentioned to you that we're working with space engineers, with oil rig architects, with nuclear power plant scientists, with anthropologists, linguists. And we're trying to design human AI systems that would augment human virtues. Because we need to pad the system where the humans are gonna mess this up. We know what are the human frailties. And what we would like to do is to embed human virtues such as curiosity, empathy, and humility into AI systems so that they could be ethically employed. Hubris in AI systems, characterized by excessive confidence and refusal to admit uncertainty, undermines trust and safety, particularly in the healthcare field where the results could be disastrous of a wrong prediction or classification. Curiosity should be embedded in AI design as an intrinsic motivation for exploration, not just the accuracy according to some ground truth. And that the human AI system will be able to defer to the humans in places where the humans should take over. So we need a system where the humans will put the rails on the AI will put the rails on humans, but at the same time, each of those two components understanding the strengths and limitations of each of them. And we think that this is the only way to go. We're trying to come up with specs of this system, and we'll share them as soon as we can. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. There's a question over there.
Thank you, Dr. Celi. This highly significant presentation. You pointed out the cost, impact, the benefit and risk of AI, and you have provided a complete roadmap to go ahead to give us hope. One area where I find it hopeless, and I also use the AI to find some instant data, which could be revealing and thought-provoking. The area where I might step into may be politically incorrect. I'm thinking of the cost, comparing the cost between AI development and the global arms race. And here is what the AI is telling me. The estimate for 2025, this year, on AI development is $370 billion. In 3 years, 2028, it will double to about $623 billion. By contrast, the global budget last year, 2024, is $2.72 trillion. Compare that. Now, the global arms race brings us no benefit. AI does have benefit and risk like any other things. Global arms race, no. It's only promoting fear, destruction, and human misery. I wish we could develop an AI system to give us a roadmap how to slow down or eliminate this global arms race and bring it really to the benefit of mankind. Thank you.
Oh, I wish I had the answer. I would be a trillionaire if we could design AI to try to slow down the arms race. But you remind me, I was part of an advisory council yesterday, and we are trying to address not just AI, but also what's happening politically around the world. And someone was saying that we should not be protesting and be political. And like, are you kidding me? Science cannot be apolitical. To me, so I did not plan to be an activist. That wasn't in my dream. Like I do kickboxing, but we are told in Krav Maga that the first thing that you do is actually run if you could run. So I'm not confrontational, but somehow I find myself here. And I really think that we need students and learners to be more of an advocate and an activist. To me, that is one of the roles that clinicians should play. And it sounds like a very daunting problem. But what I could say is that our discussions always go back to what are the philosophical underpinnings of what we do. And we need to ask those hard questions. So what is it that we value as a society? What makes us happy? What makes us thrive? And can AI help humanity achieve happiness? And decades of happiness research tell us that the secret to happiness, of course, good health, but most importantly, connectiveness. And we wonder whether AI could actually improve our connectiveness. Unfortunately, the way that we see AI now is actually it's going to even make it harder for us because you start having this AI girlfriend or boyfriend, and then you don't talk to your parents, to your friends anymore. So we have to be more deliberate and thoughtful in how we design this. And before you build a model, again, the question is, should I be building this? Like we've seen so many examples of like, what were they thinking? just because you found a data set, you find something to predict, doesn't mean that you should be developing that model. So I know it's not a very satisfying answer, but to me, I think there is hope when we bring young minds into the table. And then we need to ask those questions, what do we want as a society? Because when you say efficiency does not truly benefit everyone equally. As a provider at the front lines of care, I worry that if I become more efficient, they will just give me more patients to see. Because what matters is the KPI and the bottom line. We are cogs. We need to address the privatization and corporatization and private equitization of healthcare. Without addressing that, you cannot have guidelines for ethical deployment and development of AI. You're not addressing the elephants in the room. And I got canceled once. I got invited to an international conference and I said that we are all hypocrites here. We refuse to address the problem. And then I got an email the following week, you're no longer invited to this international ethics conference. And it came from an ethics professor. I'm not gonna say at the top university where it came from, but it's not Harvard. No, it's not. Next question, please.
Great. Oh, this is fantastic. So timely and so thought-provoking. And so really appreciate it. Now, the only thing I've done right in my lifetime is the fact that I got a chance to recruit Chris Sun, to the institution. Thank you so much. And so a couple comments. One is that I'm so glad to see that demonstrated the importance of diversity, right? Richness of this ability for us to address these scientific advances, right, in the most efficient and effective fashion. And this is really counter to the political climate, so really kudos. And then the other thing is that currently with a fairly large federal grant, we're doing brain heart related research and building actually a very large data platform, specifically actually taking a lot of your principles on that. So we definitely want to invite you back to Ottawa to, sort of have one of these sessions to expand the opportunities and have you as a really advisor for our whole program. The question that's related to that, sort of health AI is fundamentally, I think, different from other type of AI because it does actually affect individuals' quality and quantity of life. And also there's a major ethical components to this. Many of our projects, involve patients and public and ethics, as part of the input function, for us to design the systems. So I'm curious in terms of how you think about this human AI model, which I think is absolutely critical. And that is that, what is the best environment in which we can actually provide both the incentive for innovation while providing, the potential ethical and, sort of philosophical, guardrails in this type of setting, because there's a huge tension on that. Is this part of a government mandate? Is this a collaborative mandate, from stakeholders? Should this be an international type of effort, in which the group of the willing actually network together to create this? I'm curious in terms of your vision on how this could actually be accomplished.
So I think it's going to be both top down and from the margins to the center. The one that I boast about is that with very limited funding, we were able to deliver. I believe that we are close to having organized 100 events in 40 countries with very limited funding. And what we do is we secure funding locally. We don't try to go to Jordan and bring them funding because we want them to own the problem and they secure the funding themselves. So to me, it has to be a combination of government mandate, whether it's federal or state. It has to be hopefully dismantling the publish or perish culture. We're trying to come up with a new index now that we call the community index, where we're looking at what is your contribution to promoting community science and sharing data sets, developing packages that you open source. And we think that that should be a better metric truly of your contribution to better science. So again, it's reimagining the world, and you could imagine that there will be pushback. I remember I was at the JAMA office, and I said that maybe we should do away with journals. And you probably heard that RFK wants to destroy the top journals and replace them with state-mandated journals where they can control what is science. And people are just like shocked. And I said that maybe there's a silver lining to that, because to a certain degree, these top journals have contributed to the problems that we're seeing now. And we use this as the silver lining, that we use this to be able to design something from scratch. Because I'm saying that journals, they sensationalize the p-value, they sensationalize the AUC. That doesn't mean anything. It's mapped to all the specs of the experiments. And then they asked me, so what should we focus on? So I described our vision and like, oh no, that's too difficult. And that may not give us the revenues, because you know that that's what is most important to them. And that's why it goes back to the original question, what do we want as a society? Do we really want science, or do we want to keep contributing to the coffers of Elsevier and Springer? Sorry. But we need to ask these hard questions. Otherwise, we're not going to make any headway. And AI is giving us this tremendous chance, because we say now that, so I've been invited to provide guidance on how do we reimagine medical education with AI. And I said, we could introduce AI, but we need to remove this. We need to remove that. We need to add this too. And now they say that, oh, okay, maybe you have a point here. But it is going to require a lot of overcoming inertia. And this is why the young people are so important. This is why when I was invited here, I said, I want a session with the young people, because I learn from them. I don't want to be doing all the talking. I want to hear voices that we traditionally do not give a podium to.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Celi. It was very...
And you could call me Leo.
Okay, Leo, thank you. I was wondering if you could move to your final slide. And I'm glad you included it, because I was curious about any potential risks that you might envision in the years to come when we're talking about and thinking about embedding human features into the decision matrix of AI, including moral compass and empathy. And so the question is, probably multi-question, but do you think we are near or far from AI becoming sentient? And will we be able to tell when that point occurs? And if and when that does occur, how would we ever be able to legislate its activity when its decisions would probably be viewed as way beyond whatever humans could think of to challenge? Why would we be questioning the AI's decision? Because it's thinking about so many more sources of information than a human can possibly generate. So why would we want to legislate its activity and so on? I'm just curious about those risks.
So I'm in the camp actually who thinks that it will never be sentient in the way we think it is. So they look like they know, but they don't know, right? So I think you read the news last year that when this engineer was thinking of shutting down an AI, it started blackmailing him from his emails that the AI knows that he is seeing someone else. I don't think that it knows that. It was trained on some sci-fi novels or movies, and it knows that those threats can elicit a certain behavior. So that idea that it can become sentient, I actually disagree with those big names in AI, because all they're doing is understanding what certain combination of words might elicit as a behavior. So, and we could talk more about this. I could show you all the WhatsApp exchanges. This is the best classroom, I could tell you. We should really be building models, because this is how I learned. I get texts of 5 papers a day. Oh, you should look at this. And then the students actually summarize it for me already and tells me where is the problems with this paper. And this is the only way I could keep up. But of course, this is going to contribute to the disparities. some people are better in terms of utilizing technology to expand their work. And truly, we're given a red pill and a blue pill. You could either become smart and smarter or dumb and dumber. And I think that there will be a wider gap between the people who can leverage AI. And in the end, the effect of AI depends on who has control of it. And right now, we don't have control. So the question is it worth it? Right now, I feel that it's not up to us. It's the tech bros who are controlling the governments and the regulatory bodies that are having the say. We need to scream louder. That's where the innovation needs are. How do we get heard more by the people who have the purse strings? Yes.
Great, thank you so much. So I've rarely been to a talk that has resonated so much with me and also given me so much kind of existential panic. So thank you so much for that. I'm an epidemiologist, and so I spend a lot of time kind of thinking within causal frameworks and how we draw inference within causal frameworks. And I guess I have a bit of a philosophical question for you and with respect to causal frameworks and whether they're sort of irrelevant to this type of human AI system, or is it more of a causal relativism that we need?
I don't know. I could show you my text from yesterday. She's asking me whether some causal models should we weigh different causal models? And then my question is, who's going to weigh them? Because the one who's weighing them also has a lot of biases. So I think that these are the questions that the causal inference community should be addressing. And you go to their conferences and all they want is better methods for causal inference. And of course, the foundational problems in causal inference is in most of the time, you don't have the ground truths. So RCTs do not give you the ground truths. So how do you assess if a causal model or framework is better when you don't have the ground truths? And of course, the other question is, you don't have all the features to be able to come up with a truly nuanced causal model. So I'm really hoping that we somehow heard the community to ask the right questions because we're not doing that right now. So you're gonna give me water.
I can give you water. So I want to thank Leo, Dr. Celi, for coming today. This was really thought-provoking, at least for me, and I hope it was for many of you. I have all these questions in my mind about clinical research and the future of clinical research based on what I've heard today. So I really want to, I hope also, I heard Dr. Liu mention maybe we can get some time, or you can find time in your schedule to come back in the future, either in helping us with a datathon or helping with some of our big projects and big initiatives here. So I hope this is just the first step to a relationship between our institute and you and your team. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I just, we're a little bit behind schedule, but now is the poster session. So I'd encourage everybody to please go and check out all the posters. Thank you.